Okay, so we are back live, and what a match we got in store for you here. This one, Marc Farnsworth against Mike King, two top players. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Gareth Potts into the commentary. Good evening, Gaz.
Hi.
You enjoying so far?
Yeah, I have. I've watched quite a few of the games, the matches today, especially bits of the ones on this table. But I've been watching from the bar. There's obviously a lot of other big matches going on. So yeah, the standard is unbelievably high, and I think one of the reasons that the standard is unbelievably high is because of this new rack.
Yeah.
I said in the sort of pre-match interview, pre-tournament interview that I did, that I thought that it would be a sort of die-hard World Rules player that would win the World Rules events, or certainly a big favourite, you know, like a Phil, a Cousins, you know, even somebody like Mike King that only plays World Rules. And the reason for that is because the transition from Black Ball rules to World Rules and World Rules back to Black Ball rules, I feel as though the transition coming the other way is so much harder than it is going from World Rules to Black Ball rules. Now, having said that and seeing the way that the balls are breaking with this new rack, the rules are not that important.
No. I absolutely agree. I've been saying the same thing throughout the day on commentary. We have just not seen any tactical frames because everything's going open. I think we've seen one DF all day, and that was in the first match from Darren Appleton. And it's really interesting you mentioned the rack, because I remember sitting on commentary with you up in Spot On watching Clint and Mark Boyle, and you mentioned back then that you couldn't believe that someone hadn't developed one of these racks, and someone now has, and it really is. I mean, someone mentioned it could be a game changer. Well, it really is looking that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember that conversation, and it is something that's long overdue, because not only does it make the game more open and attacking, but it makes it fair for everybody. So both players, especially in this situation where they're using a referee. So the referee, everybody's guaranteed to get the exact same rack, all 15 balls are touching, and it's just an absolute no-brainer to use it. And I think the results from today clarify that. So there, going back to my point of thinking that a die-hard World Rules player would win it just because of, you know, over a tournament of this sort of length, over matches raised to 11, usually when you rack the balls with a triangle, you get a lot of tactical frames, and World Rules, a tactical frame at World Rules is almost like a game of chess.
Yeah.
And if you're not playing a lot of World Rules, you would definitely be a shot behind. So that was the reason why I said what I said. Now, having seen what I've seen today, the rules are not certainly nowhere near as much of a factor as I thought.
It's a real leveler.
It is.
I mean, I personally didn't expect. I mean, Chris Melling, fantastic player in all aspects of the game. I didn't expect him to turn up and do that kind of performance. In some ways, I don't think Chris did either. He said afterwards that he surprised himself how well he played. I definitely didn't expect Jason Shaw to turn up and do what he's just done on that table. I mean, that was some sublime pool he was playing there. You know, pretty much mistake-free. Gavin gave him the chances, but equally he was fantastic, just really flowing. But it's a really interesting game we see between us. It's two stalwarts from feet in each camp. Marc Farnsworth is current IPA #1. He's a machine. And Mike King is a current World Rules England player. So they've both had a look at the table.
Yeah, and obviously Marc firstly is, like you say, he's one of the best players in the world at the minute. I personally think hand on the table. So what I mean by that is take the break out of it. So if you were to maybe, you know, create a device where a computer program was to set up a series of finishes where you were to go from easy to hard, and everyone was to have the same amount of goes at those finishes. So hand on the table, just playing pool, taking the finishes out, I think he's the best in the world at the minute.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of other factors, and the biggest factor of the lot is the break, which that element of his game is the worst part of his game. But hand on the table, for me, he's the best player in the world at the minute.
Yeah.
Mike King, exactly as I said before, a die-hard world rules player. Now, had you ever said to me before I've seen what I've seen today, can you price this matchup? I would price it up a lot closer than it actually is priced up at the minute, just because of the world rules background from Mike King. Having seen what's gone today, especially with this rack, Marc is obviously a favourite and quite a big favourite, as he is with the bookies. But the way that it's playing, Mike is more than capable of.
Have we seen the prices on this one? I'm not sure. I haven't seen.
I think it's 1 to 3.
Okay.
Farnsworth, 2 to 1 King.
Okay. That's probably a fair reflection. But it's interesting. I mean, Mike is naturally a very attacking player, but I do wonder if he will try to use the world rules to his advantage. I mean, Marc Farnsworth just played a great shot there.
So I'm sitting sort of in our commentary setup here as to the side of this table, and I'm sitting directly behind this shot, and the red doesn't pass the yellow into the corner, so he has to take the red off the pocket here and try and get position to pop the red in the corner. He's coming back to have a look. I think he's going to play the cross double. So he's jacking the cue up. I think he's playing the cross double into the corner.
Would you not feel there was more value in trying to pot the one over the pocket, or is he just leaving that there as the insurance policy?
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit like I was saying before. You know, the world rules mindset.
Yeah.
Black ball rules. A die-hard black ball player would have definitely played your shot and tried to get, just because there isn't really much safety having that red over the pocket at black ball rules, because you obviously got the option of the skill shot. I think the world rules mindset there is to, if you've got a ball over the pocket, you obviously are in a lot of control.
And of course, something we haven't discussed in depth today is the new rules for the last event. I don't want to go into them in massive depth, because they'll develop as the events go on. But obviously, there's a massive difference there. There's some big parts of those rules. I mean, for example, Marc could just drop in Mike's red over the pocket, leave him snookered, and Mike has to play from where he is. There's no value in covering pockets whatsoever.
And that's the reason why the rules are, in my opinion, the best set of rules that you can devise for 8-ball. I think Marc's miscued off the rail there.
Yeah. He's
just looking at his tip off the camera there. You think he's miscued off the rail.
Yeah. He immediately got up off the shot and he was looking at his tip. Shake of his head.
Yeah, he just looked over at me there and actually said miscue. So, but yeah, just going back to that. So, in my opinion, they are the best set that you can devise for. And obviously, there's a lot of different rules that have been made and that are out there at the minute for 8-ball. The two main ones are obviously the world rules and the black ball. But these rules are, without a doubt, the best. They're basically, other than a few tweaks, the rules that are play in China.
Yeah.
And it just makes the game more attacking and it makes more sense. So exactly as you just said there, if you miss your last ball up the rail, you actually get punished for missing. You don't gain an advantage.
Yeah.
Where at world rules, your mindset is, well, I'll leave the ball at the rail until last, because if I get it somewhere near the hole or over the hole, if he's got a couple of balls around it, I'm maybe still favourite. I'm certainly still in the frame.
So Mike taking on a double there, just left himself awkward, and that's one that he really did need to chalk up. You can't afford mistakes like that against Marc Farnsworth. He will punish you.
Yeah, it's a very sloppy start by both players, really. I know Marc miscued, but certainly from Mike's, he looks a little bit edgy, and he certainly hasn't got the cue ball under control. This match table, I've spoke to a few of the guys that have played on the outside tables. One of the guys that played on this table first said that it is running a lot quicker than the outside table, which...
And why do you think that is? Just the extra lighting, warming up the table, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's strange because at every event where you have a TV setup like this, the TV table does generally seem to play, probably 20-30% quicker, and probably 20 to 30% more sleek than the other tables. They seem to slide more, which make the pockets play a little bit more generous. But what comes from that is you have a more attacking and higher standard match.
So Marc goes about his work and wins that first frame. He'll be over the moon to win that one, actually, because after that miscue, I think he would have expected Mike to finish off there. So he takes first honours. We're going to have a quick look around the scores around the room while the ref is setting them up. Jordan Shepherd's now in action against Jordan Templeton. He's leading 2 frames to 1. Jordan Church is back in action. That one's just starting against Toby Bolt. Gary Clark and John Rowe. That one also just starting. Max Nosko is 10-7 up against Simon Fitzsimmons. No shock to most people that know Max Nosko, but people with feet in Simon Fitzsimmons' camp would have expected him to win that. What a game going on there. Carl Sutton versus Sean Chipperfield. Carl is 3 frames to 1 up. Chris Day is playing Liam White. He's 6-3 up. Mr. Kendall won't be over the moon about that because Liam White is one of his horses. The other one being Craig Lakin. I think he's already in the loser's side. And we'll come back to look at some more of those a little later on. So we see Marc's break. And Marc, as Gaz already mentioned, he's it's probably one of the weaker aspects of his game. Do you think that the Shark Supreme rack would be a kind of revolutionised, will kind of revolutionise his break? If he gets some time to practice with it?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely going to help the players that have weaker breaks now. For somebody that's obviously as good as he is, he'd be the first person to admit that his break is far from good, and this rack has to help people like Marc, because it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have a good break. It just means that you're guaranteed to get a good split, and as long as you hit the front ball flush, which obviously he didn't do there. You can see he screwed directly and off into the corner, which means that if you screw directly and off, it's a bad shot. Obviously, if you get kicked and off, it can sometimes be unlucky, but there, when you screw directly and off or stun straight off in the middle, it means that you've either miss it the front ball or come across the white, which has chucked a bit of side on. He literally just screwed off the front ball to the right-hand side there and straighten off. So that is classed as a bad shot and an unforced error.
Now, who'd be a referee? I mean, that was some delicate work, and he's properly, I mean, he doesn't know it, but he's properly under scrutiny there. We've got the camera zoomed in on his hands, and not a waiver. Good work
he's
there
done a
from the
great
referee.
job, and that's the only argument back to this rack of, you have to, sometimes there's balls around it, and especially at English 8 ball, with the balls being lighter, you do need to remove it so the balls don't deviate over it when you're playing it slow. But I think that for the amount of times that happens, what you gain by having every single ball touching far outweighs the messing about of taking the balls off. And if you've got a referee, obviously it doesn't make a difference.
So I'm just going to run through a little bit about the players from their profiles. Marc Farnsworth, his nickname's Ginge. He's 39 years old. This one, it's come up a few times today. Quite interesting, really. When asked who made his cue, no idea. It's a rack cue that he's had for about 25 years. Don't you find that incredible? And there's so many players around that put so much.
He is one of the players where he has got a really unique cue, and it's quite small. It's got quite a small tip, but the reason why it's so unique is it's really, really whippy. And I've actually played a few shots with it, and you can get an unbelievable amount of backspin by hitting it softly. You can just see it there. Obviously, he's one of the few players that uses a maple shaft.
Yeah.
And a maple would generally be a little bit more sort of firmer and sturdy than ash. but it is unbelievably whippy, and you can get a lot of action on with the cue. So he is one of those people that wouldn't be able to play with anything else because it is such a unique cue.
Yeah. And his achievements, well, they run and run. Multiple IPA Tour winner, too many to list. Multiple IPA Pro event winner, multiple IPA World Series winner, and currently ranked #1 on the IPA Tour. That's a nice shot from Mike. He's got about his clearance well. So just a quick look at his opponent, who is Mike King, otherwise known as Kinger or Kingy, 33 years old. He's used the John Paris cue with a 9mm outmaster. It's quite a big tip for a pool player. Most players 8.5 and under. He's won the World Team Champions, the European Team Champions, the Home Nations Team Champions, 2-time Southwest Masters winner, and he's won the Southwest Pool Tour 4 times. And that's quite a hotly contested event. It's himself and players like Shane Thompson, Darren McVicker, Greg Batten. They're all regulars on that tour. So, a very competitive area that he comes from. And again, we see the ref.
Yeah, so the guide of how to rack the balls up with the short rack is that you put the top ball on last and build backwards from the second 2 balls down. I have seen it a few of the players playing on the outside tables that have never used the short rack before. It is quite comical to watch them, where they're building all sorts of shapes and building it walls at the side. And I saw Brian Alcrow earlier actually that built all of the balls around the outside and left the 3 in the middle until last.
Oh no.
Tried to drop the black in and then scattered the balls everywhere.
Yeah.
But one thing that does seem to happen with the Magic Rack, which does happen at the other cue sports I've seen it used, is less balls seem to end up on the cushion.
Yeah, yeah.
If you look at this break, this is exactly an example of that. Look.
And I did notice actually, even this afternoon, you notice with the cut break, very often a proliferation of the balls are on one side or the other, whichever side you break from it. It quite often happens, but it doesn't seem to happen quite so much with this.
Yeah, and just going to that there, I mean, Mike's just played probably the worst shot of his life there first. He just had to stun the yellow into the corner and land on the one that's just below the brown spot on the snooker table. That was the ball he's played, and he's screwed back 3 inches too far and landed behind the red, and I'm not sure he's even on the one into this corner. He's not. He's
yeah, Mike would not be happy.
He won't be happy, but he's played a good containing shot there. He'll be happy to see the red go on the rail.
Yeah.
The only thing that he's probably left him is the plant into the top left corner.
He'll know going into this game that he can't afford too many mistakes.
No, he certainly won't be winning the match playing shots like he just played first there. Because, like I said, hand on the table, there isn't, in my opinion, anyone better. And if he gives him table time, he will lose this match.
Yeah.
I think he can play the cross double here actually, and he's played it slowly because. Yeah, what happens with doubles is obviously the harder you hit them, the straighter they come off the rail. So he knew he was going to be rolling that, so he purposely aimed it low. I think it hit the top knuckle, which meant it slid even further than he thought. On any new table with new cushions, the doubles are the hardest thing to judge. And if he's come absolutely dead straight here on the ball across the top rail, this is not ideal.
I think he's just got a bit of an angle. Certainly, yeah, you can see. Should be able to force it round. Yeah.
You see, and that was the problem.
Yeah,
He'd come too straight. He tried to obviously pinch too much. And he just looks, he's all over the place at the minute.
He is. In fact, Mike is one of the players I'm very familiar with, and it's just not him at the moment. Very, very capable player. Well, the fact he's in the England team suggests that, doesn't it? You don't get in the England team.
Yeah, not be too many times I'd maybe question Marc's patterns there, but I think he should have played on the one down the rail next. While he had the ball over the middle, I think he should have took the one down the rail, because now leaving that one down the rail and leaving the one on the left of the black that doesn't go into this corner makes the finish tough now.
There's no path between either, is there?
Yeah, I mean, he can play the red into the middle, but I'm not sure if the black passes into this top right corner.
No.
For me, just leaving that side of the ball on that side of the table just makes this finish sort of 3 times harder than it would have been. I'd either took the ball down the rail second shot.
So he's having a close look.
I think he's just okay.
Yeah. Might just have to play it with a tracer's side, just to turn the white over slightly.
But I do think he missed a trick there. I think when he drops the one in the middle, he has to play the one up the rail and clear that side.
And he's tried to move it there, hasn't he?
Yeah, he tried to screw into it.
So it's not getting any easier. But Marc Farnsworth, probably one of the greatest exponents of making these really tricky clearances. See him do it time and time again on the tour.
Yeah, I know over big distances, playing these long races, you know, ultimately it's your patterns that have to be so good, because you can't continuously to get the finishes if you're taking the balls in the wrong order. And for anyone out there that doesn't know what I mean by patterns, it means that in which order that you take the balls.
Yeah, your roadmap, basically.
Yeah, your roadmap, yeah. And Marc Farnsworth would normally have the best roadmap sort of program, if you like. Well, as good as I've seen. If you consistently take the balls in the wrong order, it doesn't really matter how good you are. Eventually, you're gonna get caught out. You can't keep potting balls from nowhere. You can't keep taking them in the wrong order. But he's definitely took these in the wrong order, because now he's got a tricky shot to play.
A couple of tough shots coming up.
Jesus, what about this first shot? He played that with running side. So he played that with left-hand side around 3 rails, and that is a tough shot to play.
And this is, again, it's difficult, just off the rail slightly, so
it is,
that adds to the difficulty.
It is, and I don't think the black goes into this bottom right. Well, I don't think it goes into. It may go into the bottom left corner. Maybe you can play it with left-hand side and just drop the cue ball into the gap between the yellow and the black, and maybe it goes into the left corner. I don't think it goes into the right. That's the left corner as we look. I think it goes in. So the left corner as we look, I think it squeezes past. I don't think it goes to the right. So I think maybe he has to drop this to right-hand side and maybe kiss the yellow full ball. Doesn't like it.
No, he doesn't. This is a real high degree of difficulty. But, he's the man for the job. That's a great pot. He's given himself a shot. It's a tough black in the top corner.
Maybe we can bring you a camera angle here that you'll know if it's in before he does.
And no. So, another chance for Mike King. And a good chance.
Yeah, and obviously that was a tricky black, but I don't think the black was the bad shot. I think taking the balls in the wrong order was the bad shot.
So the question, does that pass into that pocket? Pretty
Yes,
sure it does.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we may have seen him try to play this long one and maybe just flick off the black to open that pocket, but no need to. There's another unwanted kiss. He's okay, but it's just not at the races at the moment, Mike. Just struggling to find the pace of the table.
I think how edgy and uncomfortable he looks, he'll be over the moon to be 2-1 up in a few minutes.
To be fair, I mean, we haven't really mentioned it yet. But, wow.
Maybe he thought it was a bit too tight.
Yeah.
It was a good shot actually, because he obviously had the natural angle with a little bit of right hand side to get there, and there was a big target.
Yeah, I was going to say we haven't really mentioned it yet, but it's quite an intimidating place to be out there, isn't it? It's some arena. They've done a great job putting this together. And oh, he needs to miss that middle bag. Wow. Oh, that's a disaster. That is a disaster.
Oh wow.
Wow. Well, as I say, this isn't how it would have played out in Mike's head, and he's had good chances in all of the first 3 frames. He could legitimately be 3-0 up. But,
yeah, and one thing that happened there was, because obviously the cue ball's slightly lighter than the object balls, especially on this TV table that's playing a little bit slicker and quicker than the other tables, the harder he hits that, the wider the white jumps out to the left-hand side before he hits the top cushion. So he was playing that 2 rails. He was playing top rail to hit the cushion before the middle pocket. But because he hit it so hard and the cue ball jumped out to the side first, just meant that it came off at a wider angle, and obviously it went into the middle. And it is one of them things that when you're inexperienced playing on match tables like this in TV arenas, like we mentioned at the start of this, they do play very different. And somebody that's inexperienced, you know, for me, yes, it was a bad shot, but it was more not really understanding how the table plays differently.
Yeah, Mike won't be used to this kind of exposure, this kind of pressure. He's played a few money matches in the past, but in this kind of arena, there's a lot of people watching. You know, some of the cream of English pool stood around the table. There's some critical eyes. And the TV cameras are there. The lights are on him. He's going to take a while to settle in, and he's certainly not settled yet. So, Marc with the break in frame number 4.
He's had 2 breaks and screwed straight off into opposite corners on both.
And I think this could take a moment for the ref to move the rack if Mike decides that he wants it off the table. I'm pretty sure he does. Just needs to mark 1 ball though. I think the one just towards the bottom. He's just asking, should he leave it on? We did see Chris Melling leave it on earlier, and if you play across it at pace, there's no deviation. It's absolutely fine. When you kind of play those deadweight shots, or when you've got to place your hand somewhere around it, if you're going to touch it, the last thing you want to do is move a ball and foul.
Yeah, and obviously Chris playing the American pool and the Chinese pool, they use them.
Very used to it,
and he's used to it, but he's used to leaving it. He's used to leaving it on more because obviously the weight of the balls, it doesn't deviate too much with the weight of the balls. A little bit different English 8 ball. You have got to be a little bit careful, but I think he's left the angle here first shot to pop the yellow into the middle and play the cannon.
So I take it he's looking to cannon the black here.
Yeah, he needs to hit the black.
No, that's no good. Well, I say it. Has he got a shot? Can he? Does that go into the middle? Sure, it does.
Well, I think it goes into the left corner, but I don't think he can pot the one. It goes into the middle and the left corner, but I'm not sure he can pot it from that angle, can he? No, he couldn't, so he's just chipped it away. And if he's left that touching, that's a really good shot. If he's touching, I think he's snookered him on everything.
Mark's asking for the rack to now be removed.
He is, but he's going to need to mark one of them.
Yeah, definitely needs to mark one of those 2 balls. He's marking the black. You couldn't pull it one way because the black would have just slid. Just needs to be careful taking it off the marker. It's delicate work. Doesn't take too long. Also allows Marc a few more seconds to think about his shot. Robinson was saying earlier on that the ref had to mark 4 balls earlier to get the sheet off the table.
Even though it looked a simple shot, I think the shot that Mike's just played there is, or maybe you can see the edge of it, I was going to say, is probably the best shot he's played in this match so far, but I think he can just snick the edge of, he could hit it full, and I thought.
So that little kiss has closed the door. Mike did have a difficult shot to drop yellow to middle, but the extra roll of the reds just covered that path.
So where he's just pointed his cue there on the table is where the cue ball is going to end up on the back cushion. Oh, that's where he planned on making it. That's where he planned on putting it, but he's over it that by probably 2 feet. He wanted it where it says Supreme Pool Series on the table, the Supreme logo in between that and the Players Pool event. He wanted it somewhere near there.
So the Max Nosko-Simon Fitzsimmons game is reaching a conclusion. Max is currently 10 frames to 9 ahead. He was 10-8. Simon's just picked up the last frame. Don't forget, we are streaming 4 tables. So there's a key shot, and he's played that really well. The yellow, he would just had his heart in his mouth for a second as the yellow tracked across the table. I think he's okay.
No, he's perfect. He can just drop the one into the left middle, drop the red into the left corner, leave the red over the other centre as his second to last ball, and obviously pot the one next to the back last.
And I can tell you that at 10 frames to 9 up, Max Nosko's in the middle of a clearance, a very makeable clearance as well. So he's looking a big favourite to win that one. That one is being live streamed. But I'll keep you in touch with it. No need to go anywhere.
So he'll pot this a little bit left-hand side, 2 rails, and the cue ball back on the line that it's on now.
Lovely. Marc just picking up on these Mike King mistakes.
Yeah, and obviously Mike had a bad start, but he did have a chance to to go 2-1 there when he went off in the middle, and it is easier to settle down, even though you had a bad start when you're winning the frames. It's twice as hard to settle down when you're losing them.
So we're going to have another quick virtual tour of the tables. Have a look at the scores in the room. Jordan Shepherd, he was 4-2 up against Jordan Templeton. He's now 6-2 up. Chris Melling will play Arfan Dad. That game's just about to get underway. Sanjay Patel off the back of a really good win. He's just about to get underway against Sam Bircher. Sean Story just played their first frame against Jimmy Croxton. He's 1-0 up. Toby Bolt, who's just in a real rich vein of form at the moment. 3-1 up against Jordan Church. Gary Clark, John Rowe, 1 apiece. Scott Gillespie, 4-1 up against Mason Penny. Gaz Royds, 3-2 up against Neil Raybone. Max Nosko has just broken down at the conclusion of his clearance. Missed the last yellow, and he was on the black as well. So Fitzsimmons at the table with a chance to go 10 frames each. Carl Sutton will get this for a scoreline. I mean, Carl Sutton, a fantastic player, but Sean Chipperfield, the way he played earlier in that second match on the stream table, who would have thought that Carl Sutton would be 7-1 up against a former world champion? Sean Chipperfield, not at the races in that game. Chris Day, 7-4 up against Liam White. Liam Dunster, 7-1 up against Bash McSood. Ben Rowland trailing Rob Warren, 8-7. Jason Morris, 7-6 up against Michael Steele. And Greg Batten, 5-2 up against Dom Cooney. So, back to the action. That's a super shot from Mike. Trusting her luck a little bit, but even so. Wow. It's just not happening, is it? I think, judging by the cue ball there, he must have had a kick. It sent it offline, and the cue ball just stopped almost dead. He played it just to run through a few more inches, and it stopped dead. And you could tell from Mike's reaction that he was a bit miffed. And, again, an unforced error. So that's Marc Farnsworth in. Marc Farnsworth doesn't need an easy run. He doesn't need an easy life. You need to be at him, taking your chances. You see George in the background. George Tierney watching on. As was Gav Robinson. Interested spectators. That is not what the doctor ordered, but looks like he can just kiss into the cush. Oh, look, he's tried to dab it. He's had a couple of false starts. Eagle-eyed ref. absolutely no value in just playing a DF here. And it's not a bad shot. He's not left anything easy. There's a very fine cut back into the middle. Those two yellows nearest the centre line are just covering each other. There's no path through to the one at the top of the table, so I feel that the only shot he's got is this thin cut, or he'll be ducking for cover again. So Gaz just rejoined us, and similar pattern in this one. Mike King with a great chance, but broke down. And he's going to be in a lot of trouble now.
Yeah, he needs to, obviously it's a total snooker, so he needs to come off the top rail and he needs to get this touching ball.
It's a similar shot that he played a minute ago.
That's far from touching ball, and obviously the harder you hit that, the further up the rail you push the red. But he's literally hit that 3 times harder than he needed to.
So you can see at the bottom of the screen, if you want to look at the scores and the results, qscore.com/players pool events.
I'm surprised Marc didn't play off the left-hand side of that yellow there. Sort of make sure he gets the full ball snooker. He hasn't left him a double into the corner, but I don't know if he's maybe left him enough to double it back into the middle. No, he hasn't, because he's jacking his cue up here, so he hasn't.
So just looking down at the Max Nosko Simon Fitzsimmons stream. Simon Fitzsimmons did take it to 10-all after Max Nosko broke down. Max has got yet another chance to close out that game.
So he's purposely left the angle on the middle yellow of the 3 to pot it in the corner and just flick the other one over the middle. It's guaranteed to be on the other one.
Didn't get the flick.
He didn't.
Now
but
he's in trouble, isn't he?
In the way he can play the double. At worst case, he can play the double. He played that plain ball, so he either needed a lot of left-hand side or he needed to stun into it.
Yeah, a very makeable double as well, so you expect him to get that one. He's left a great angle just to stand up table.
And at the minute, it's hard to see how Mike King's going to get anywhere near getting back into this match because he just looks uncomfortable in every department.
Yeah, Marc Farnsworth, one of the toughest opponents in the world, and you just can't give him these kind of chances. So I say I'll just keep you up to date with what's going on in that Max Nosko, Simon Fitzsimmons game. At a key point, and again, Max Nosko broke down in his clearance, and it's Simon Fitzsimmons at the table with a very, very good chance, and one that you certainly expect him to take. But there'll be some nerves in that one.
He's on the Reds, but I'm just looking at the Max Nosko Fitzsimmons match here, and Max has missed again, but Simon's at the table, but the Reds are not nice. Well, I say not nice. They're not.
They're gettable, but
they're gettable,
there's a lot of work to do with the cue ball.
They're nasty, especially at 10 each. At 10 each, it's sort of a 50-50 finish, or no better after this shot. He's got 4 Reds left, but he's got to be really cute with the cue ball. Now, he's lost the cue ball a little bit here, but he has actually finished with a perfect angle on his third to last ball, so I think that 50-50 has maybe just gone to like 70-30 now, but it's still not a gimme.
Big frame for both of those players. They're in a tough section of the draw.
So that's strange, isn't it? Because I think that all 15 balls couldn't have been touching there. I don't know if we can get you a replay of that break. No. But they just didn't move. That was like what happens sometimes with a triangle. So
and that's the first time we've seen that on this table today.
Yeah, they just didn't move, so there was a gap somewhere. Even though all the balls do sit in the little holes, they do still have to be pushed together to make sure they're touching, and obviously they weren't there. But that's the strange thing about this game. That was probably the worst break he's hit out of the 3. It's the only time the cue ball stayed on the table. The ball didn't really move. One ball canned another ball in, and they're close to unmissable.
So a key shot coming up here for Simon Fitzsimmons. My goodness, didn't he play that well? I know you're probably either watching this game or so you can't quite see what I'm talking about, but he's on his last red. He's got some work to do with the cue ball to get onto the last black, sorry, and yeah, 10 frames apiece. It's massive for these two players. Of course, Max Nosko, prolific money match player. Simon Fitzsimmons made it to was the losing finalist in the World Championships last year against Craig Marsh. A big shout just went up.
The big shout went up for table 11. So
in fact, yeah.
Whichever matches.
I think
on
we're
11.
just a couple of seconds behind. I think that was Cy Fitzsimmons finishing this black off.
Right,
I imagine.
So was this match?
Oh no.
Wow.
The big shout was because
Oh,
he missed the black.
Yeah, Simon just missed a sort of, well, a 49 out of 50 black there, really.
Yeah, very, very gettable, but under pressure, just adds that another level of difficulty.
He'll be even more sick missing the black because he did take out a really good finish as well to get to the black. The reds were tricky.
In the meantime, Marc's just going about the motions. It's just seems to be a procession at the moment.
Yeah, he's going to actually drop this one into the middle, and he's going to take the one down the rail last, and then he needs to stun across to land as straight as possible, really, on the last ball in the middle. And you see that's why see the cue ball spinning there. He's played that over right-hand side to keep the cue ball as close to the middle pocket as possible. And he needs to just stun across and finish pretty straight here, just so he can top the cue ball forward, because the black does go into both corners. So maybe as he left the angle that he can just play a little soft screw shot and just softly screw the red out of the way. There's two options: either drops it in and runs past it, or he just softly screws the red out of the way. He's screwing the red out of the way.
And I can tell you that Max Nosko's on his last yellow with the black hanging over the pocket, and he is going to win that game, and he will progress on the winner's side as Simon Fitzsimmons drops into the losers. There's another great game that went to Hill. There's been a few of those today. Jordan Shepherd just taking another frame against Jordan Templeton. He's 7 frames to 2 up.
Just looking at the live scores there, Michael Steele, that's a blast from the past. I remember when I first started out and turned professional on the IPA, Michael was like one of the, I would say, the older pros then. So I was talking to him earlier, actually, because we go back a long way, like I say, from when I first sort of turned professional at 16. He retired and finished playing, and now he's retired from work. I think he had his own business. He's retired now and found himself just sitting at home watching all the pool online board. So he's now back playing, which is good to see.
It's funny you mentioned the name, because in his first round match he played Jamie Graham, and Jamie was a 1-10 favourite, and then he was 9 frames to 3 behind. Michael Steele was 5-1, and it did go 10-all, but Michael came through as the winner. So you could have got a good price on him this morning at 5-1.
And to be completely honest, Michael was professional, but he wasn't one of the top professionals. He was certainly towards the bottom tier of the professionals. Maybe now the fact he's retired and he's back practicing, he's back stronger than ever.
So you saw the scores pop up on the screen there, a couple of interesting ones. One in that Sean Chipperfield is making a massive resurgence. He was 7-1 down against Carl Sutton, and he's shown his class. He's pulled back 4 frames in a row.
Yeah, but those 4 frames could have been won in the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, I mean they were pretty quick.
He is
quick.
wise, without doubt, the fastest player I've ever seen.
He's amazing.
Obviously,
when he was in his pomp earlier, flowing around the table, it was incredible to watch.
What comes with being so quick is obviously sometimes you can get a little bit careless, but when he is flying, it is good to watch. It's not only is he so quick, but he only cues up to the cue ball once and just hits it.
And he was playing Kyle O'Donoghue, who is no slouch, but he made him look slow. That was another Hill game.
Another interesting one on there, which is Malin against Van Dad. Those two would be really good friends, and they had Malin priced up quite a heavy favourite. But when I saw the price of that, I think it was 3-2. I think Orphan was 3-1, Malin 1-2. I thought that was a big price on Orphan because he is a good player and he has got a massive break.
Yeah, and they'll have played each other dozens of times over the years, won't they?
Sure, I think they practice together,
Yeah.
so they'll certainly be familiar. Liam White, Chris Day. That was a tough one to call. I think the bookies had that marked up pretty even, and that's the way it's looking. It's 8-7 to Chris.
I think Chris Day was 5-1 up in that game as well. So Liam again making a comeback, and this is better from Mike. And do you know what? At 5-2, he's still not out of the game. It feels like he is playing against Marc Farnsworth, but you know, Mike King, he can, if he finds it, he can be a destructive player.
He's far from out of the game. It's 5-2. Don't forget, you know, this is a race to 11.
Yeah.
You know, he's far from out of it, but he's going to be out of it if he continues to play like he did at the start of the match. And I do think maybe a part of the way that he was at the start of the match, I think maybe you're right. Maybe he was looking across and seeing the name on the opposite TV screen rather than just worrying about what he's doing at the table, because he'll obviously be fully aware of how good Marc is, and when you have a reputation and when you're obviously at the top, that can sometimes win your frames just by
the intimidation
factor.
Yeah.
So Mike's just come to the side of the com box where we are here and asked his mate for a Coors Light. So
yeah,
he's on it.
Mike does like a little drink or two. He's quite funny on commentary when he's had a bit of a session. A bit of a madman, isn't he? Is Mike, but he wants to loosen up a bit, so he's going to have a pint.
I can tell you that Farnsworth loves a drink as well, but
I've heard that. Vodka drinker,
he's
I think,
partial
isn't he?
to the odd Grey Goose, yeah.
Yeah. Him and Ronan.
By the bottle.
Yeah.
See, one thing that obviously that's the best break that's one of the best breaks I think I've ever seen him hit. And you see how I was saying there, okay, there's a couple of balls gone on the side rails, but look, you know, the Reds, there's just one on the side cushion, and I think it may go, especially the way the pockets are playing up past the yellow. But just going back to Marc's break there, if you notice when he hit the cue ball, the cue went basically up towards the light. So what happens when you do that is you're effectively striking the cue ball. The cue is then going up in the air, and what that does is you're losing power that should be being transferred into the cue ball, into the pack. You're losing that basically up into the air. It's important that when you break, that you have to drive the cue through and drive it what we call through the bed of the table.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but that's what the aim is, to keep the power and the momentum going forward rather than lose it up into the air.
And you know, I mean, it's been mentioned before, if there is a weak aspect to Marc's game, it is his break. So, is it something that you think he works on, or does he just not care?
No,
because
he
can make up for it?
No, he does. He works on it, and he's fully aware that, you know, for him to do what he wants to do and to dominate like he does, he's not going to be able to do that if he isn't getting his minimum equal amount of table time. So he's fully aware of it, and he actually spoke to me about it quite a lot, and I went through it with him a little bit, and he has gone away and he has worked on it, but it is one of those things where it just doesn't come natural to him. you know, you have players that are naturally big breakers, and he just naturally isn't a big breaker.
I was going to say, can you imagine Marc Farnsworth with Tom Cousins' break?
Well, you know,
or you know, someone like Ben Davis, another monster break, or Craig Marsh, naturally big breakers. And he'd just be unstoppable. He's virtually unstoppable now, but he goes on these trips around the world on the IPA tour for fun. It's almost like a bit of a holiday for me. He always seems to qualify.
So he just
played a bad one there.
He just decelerated a little bit on that, and the consequence of that is he's not on the ball into the middle. Obviously decelerate, which means the cue ball didn't grip like he wanted it to. He wanted the cue ball in the gap of those two reds there, that the cue ball's in between rather than just low on it.
Has he got anything? Has he got a back double, or is that just too thin?
No, I think that's too. I think it's too thin. I don't think he can play. I don't think he can play the swerve.
Oh, dear me, I just noticed Gav Robinson in the background yawning, and it set me off. It's been a long day. Clint's joined the audience, just sat behind Mike's shoulder watching intently.
Oh, I said he was too thin on the back double. We actually need have made it.
So lost the white, and here we are again, Mike King with a gilt-edged chance to pull back to 3 frames.
This is the rule that I don't like about the world rules, is that the 2 shots carry. For me, this is the worst rule of the lot of it, and that's coming from a player that grew up playing world rules. That's all I ever knew. When I was sort of 12, 13 years old, that's when the world rules were just coming in from the old EPA rules. So I grew up just playing world rules and only world rules. So you know, I was familiar with them as anybody, and looking back at the time, you don't know any different.
Yeah,
it is what it is. But looking back at it now, and having played a lot of the different rules at the different disciplines.
But why is that, Gaz? Because I mean, there is an argument that, I mean, the guy's just fouled, so he should be penalised to the fullest extent.
Yes, no, well, you should be penalised for making a foul, but not to the extent of having 2 shots that carry.
Yeah.
I think ball in hand is more than enough, because yes, you're foul, but what you're effectively saying in world rules is, okay, if you make a foul, you lose the frame.
You lost the frame, yeah. I understand, yeah. And at this level, you pretty much have, haven't you?
Yes. At least with either ball in hand, or even at the black ball rules where you get the 1 free shot, at least then once the free shot's out of the way, there's pressure on the finish. At any point, if he misses, where world rules, you know, when you've got 2 shots carry, you miss in this situation, you might as well just rack them up.
Yeah. So one result that I did miss going through was Darren Appleton's played his 2nd round game against Usama Maskini. He won that one 11 frames to 4, so a comfortable victory.
Who was that, sorry? What was his surname?
Usama Maskini.
Oh, all right.
Don't be cruel. Cole Bedford is through again. Cole playing really well, actually. He was one of the bets of the day for me. 5-6 in his first round game, which he won quite comfortably. Adam Davis has breezed through his first couple of games. And in fact, after taking out Yannick Bofi in his first round game, it probably opens up that top section for him, because it is arguably one of the weaker sections.
Well, and also on top of that is Adam Davis was an absolute steal in the Calcutta. I think he went for about 700.
Yeah.
Now, for someone that is a die-hard World Rules player, former world champion, with a good draw, for me, he was the best value of everybody in the whole field.
Yeah. Him and for me, I said it earlier, is Gareth Hibbert. I mean, Gareth plays World Rules week in, week out. I know he's Black Boy IPA, but he does play World Rules every week, and such a great player. So the ref shouldn't have any problem removing this rack. It's there's no balls actually rested. Come to rest on it.
This is for me when you know that things are sort of heading your way, and when that you sort of know you're meant to win, because Marc's obviously just made 2 mistakes there in the last 2 frames and lost. You know, so from 5-1 to 5-3, you're not panicking, but you know that you're in a match, and there Mike's absolutely flushed the break, and just left tap-ins on the yellows. So Marc will be glad to see the black drop in here and get on with the next frame, just to sort of impose himself back in this match. But that's what great players do. You have to forget about mistakes that you've just made and get on with the next frame, and there's no way Marc's going to miss this finish.
I didn't actually see the Tom Cousins result against Paul Riley, but he won that one 11 frames to 1. I spoke to Paul earlier. Wasn't expecting too much of himself. He's a great player, but he said he's not had any time to practice. He's just turned up with no expectations, and that's a bit of a pasting. Ben Davis only just squeaked through against Rich Wharton. Missed that result going through as well. It was a hill game. Again, it feels like Marc's going through the motions in this frame. You can't see where there's going to be a mistake, because he just rarely makes them.
His cue ball control is really good. I think a lot of players there would have just played that as a little stun shot, but he played it as a screw with a little bit of right hand side, which obviously took the cue ball closer. Strange one. He didn't just stun into the gap, or even if he stuns into the black, but now he's got to play sort of a shot. Played it nice. One thing about Marc is when even when he slightly runs out of position or leaves himself a tough pot, what I do like about him is he doesn't really break stride. You know, he's not one of those players like Phil Harrison that if he isn't like on a penny, he's standing there shaking his head and walking around the table moaning. He just literally gets on with it. No matter where he leaves the cue ball, it's just, well, this is where I've left it. I can't change it. I'll just get on with it.
No. But you've got to love a bit of Phil Harrison histrionics, haven't you? I mean, that's just...
Well, as
funny.
As a player playing against him, I remember, I've played him God knows how many times, and he's one of them players where when you're sitting in your chair and you see him play a shot, and you see him walking around the table shaking his head,
you think you're in. Yeah.
He's snooking himself, he's not landing on that ball, and when you actually have a proper look, you can see he's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
So it can be a little bit demoralising
I can imagine,
from that point of view. George there doing a good job of putting the rack together.
There we see the Players Pool Series logos. And I don't know who came up with the strap line when two worlds collide, but it definitely sums up this series.
That's a good camera angle there for the break. So if you hit the break right, the cue at the right trajectory, and strike the cue ball at the right pace, the two balls below the front ball will track towards the middle. So you just keep your eye on that. He just got kicked out. The yellow that was to the left just got kicked out at the last minute. They do track that way. It's if that other ball comes and kicks him out. You can see, to be fair, there on that camera angle, Mike was tapping his leg there to say, good strike, good break, rack 'em up.
Yeah, these...
But you see, again, what I was saying. Okay, there's a red near the right cushion, but look at the yellows. There's one not anywhere near the cushion.
Absolutely plumb.
And that's what does happen so much with this magic rack. It happens at the Chinese 8-ball as well. When you use the magic rack, there just doesn't seem a ball that goes, well, certainly nowhere near as much as when you use the triangle, that goes anywhere near the cushion, which does make for an unbelievably high standard. I do think, as you mentioned at the top of this, that it is going to make a big difference to Farnsworth, because if Farnsworth's competing with these players in the breaking department, then, well, they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah, yeah. Didn't want that yellow to follow in. It's made it just the clearance just a touch harder, but it's still
I agree. He's
gettable.
got a screw on and off the side cushion now. It has made a big difference. There you go. It's made it that big a difference. Who's missed it?
And had that not dropped in, had that yellow not followed the other one in, that frame was pretty much a gimme.
Yeah, and although obviously he shouldn't miss that, and you would never expect him to miss it. You know exactly what I was saying before about he doesn't wince there. He literally just gets down and just plays it as though he was absolutely perfect.
Yep.
The majority of the time, that is a big trait to have.
Yeah, it's a fabulous trait to have, because, I mean, the thing is, although it doesn't affect Phil in a negative way, the fact you're standing there shaking your head thinking, oh, ruin your luck, or how unlucky am I got that kiss, it adds negativity. It builds layers of negativity in your mind.
Absolutely.
Whereas,
if you speak to any psychologist about that sort of thing, that is obviously an absolute no-no, because you're exactly what you're saying. You're building it up to be something that it isn't.
And there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing's going to change. I mean, I saw Carl Morris doing it earlier. You know, kind of throwing his chalk down and you know, angry and talking to people in an angry manner. It's just all this negativity just continues to build, and it has to have a detrimental effect.
Yeah, because ultimately a shot's only as hard as you perceive it to be. It's only as hard as you build it up to be in your own mind. And it's just, you know, you see people miss, you know, a pressure ball, like for example in that last match there, you've seen Fitzsimons miss almost a 50 out of 50 black.
Yeah.
Now he's missed that black because he's built it up in his mind, because he's told himself, right, the score's 10 each, right, I was 10-4 down or whatever the score was, right, this is a big difference on where I stand in the draw, going to the loser side. He built everything up before he's played that black and made it missable.
Yeah. And do you know what? It's a very, very similar mindset to a poker player as well. A poker player, that's another, well, I think he may have got away with it, but...
I'm not sure he has got away with it.
But yeah, a poker player, he's going to rue his luck because he's just had his aces cracked. But the truth is, there's nothing you can do about it. And it's just, you are where you are. You're still in the tournament. If you sit there just ruining your luck, then you're ultimately just going to lose your chips because you're going to get them in a bad place. Or you just say, okay, I can live with that. I can take it. Let's just move on.
Yeah, and I think what you're trying to say with that is if you make a mistake, it can only cost you one frame.
Yeah.
It can only cost you that one frame, and then it has to be forgotten about. If it's going to cost you more than one frame, then you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. Do they call it? Someone said the 3 steps rule. I can't remember if that's a thing or it's just somebody I know that uses it. You know, it's okay to think, you know, I was unlucky or whatever, but within 3 steps, just 3 steps around the table, and it needs to be out of your mind, and you're on to the next shot.
Yeah, and some players sort of thrive off, I wouldn't say thrive off making a mistake, but I use Appleton as an example. He makes a mistake and you can see he looks angry, you know, he looks like he wants to kill somebody. But he uses that to his advantage, and it makes him angry, it makes him play better, and it makes him almost with the mindset as, right, I'm not going to do that again. You know, I'm sort of, you know, I'm pissed right off with that. I'm not going to do that
Just
again.
makes him get his head down.
Yeah.
So this game is becoming more and more interesting.
Well, that was a huge frame because 6-4 and 7-3 is huge. So, and obviously Marc will be fully aware of that, and so will Mike. So, it was a big frame, not only a big frame because of the scoreboard, but it was a big frame because of the way that he won it with Marc missing the ball that he missed.
So we're going to take another quick look at some of the scores from around the room, and there you have them in front of you. Jordan Shepherd is on the hill. He needs one more frame against his namesake Jordan Templeton. Carl Morris, Callum Singleton, just about to get underway. Chris Melling is now pipping Arf and Dad, 4 frames to 3. Sanjay Patel trailing Sam Birchip, which is 1 frame in it. Toby Bolton, Sean Story, again just 1 frame between them. In fact, there's a couple of, according to that, Sean Story's playing twice, so we'll have to get that one changed. And there we go, Chris Day is on the verge of sending Liam White across to the loser's side. And Liam Dunstan 9 frames to 2 against Bash Maqsood. And Michael Still, who we mentioned earlier, playing Jason Morris. That's a hill-hill game. I'd like to have a little count later of how many have gone hill-hill. There's quite a number. Greg Batten's just 1 frame up against Dom Cooney. He's not having it all his own way. Greg, that's his first game today because he had a bye. He was due to play, I think it was Lewis Prince, who couldn't turn up.
Another frame here where only 1 ball is even close to a cushion. He would be happy with that because he actually, well, he played to cannon into that, but he didn't play to cannon it by snicking the other yellow first. When he potted it into the corner, it just glanced to the yellow, and obviously he's kicked the red to the rail, and now they're all in the middle of the table.
It felt like a procession at 5-2 down, didn't it? I mean, if the bookie was offering odds in play, then I think he'd have had Marc at probably about 1-8 or even maybe shorter, because it seemed like a procession. But
yeah, if it was a boxing match, then I think it would have been stopped. And now it's far from that because he's got. Well,
If you can find this clearance, then just 1 free minute.
I do think that he needs to tighten the cue ball up. I know that he's somehow got back into this match through Marc missing a couple of balls, but even on finishes like this that are so easy, you still have to take care, and he's just nudged the red there in front of the yellow that's over the middle, which is, he'll still get the finish, but it's just made it enough to make it awkward.
Yeah, yeah, and we saw that with Marc earlier, just running out of position, making it awkward, ultimately cost him that frame. So just changing the subject slightly, who do you fancy for the snooker? I mean, that's just been turned up on its head this year, hasn't it? It's,
yeah, I'm not sure what the scores have ended up tonight.
No,
actually.
I haven't. I'm going to have to have a look now because
I just think it's hard to make a case for any of them beating Higgins, a race to 17 and 18. I'd like to see Hawkins win. He's obviously been knocking on the door for, I think it's, 4 semi-finals out of the last 5 years, which is an unbelievable record.
Yeah.
And he is a nice guy, so I'd like to see Hawkins win, but like I said, I think it's hard to see anything other than Higgins.
I'd like to see Hawkins win just because I had a bet on him before it started. But I take no credit for that at all. I was probing Mike Day's mind before the event started, and he said that he felt that Barry was pretty good each way value at 25 to 1, and I don't think there's many people in the country who know more about snooker than Mike Day, so I was happy to go with that prediction.
Just on that shot there, he just pulled out of the yellow, and he's left the cue ball. A good shot right in the middle.
Yeah.
He just jumped up a little bit on the yellow and just pulled out of it, which obviously left the black missable. But from what's gone from looking like Farnsworth was probably going to run out 11-3 is now it's game on. Mentally it makes a big difference because he knows that he should be out of sight by now, so mentally it's something which is a big part of this game that you have to.
And it makes this break now of Marc's, it's this is a key break. It goes without saying, but this one in the context of the match, in a race to 11, it really is massive. The difference between 7-5 and 6-all now, psychologically too. Probably not many people around that are as strong psychologically as Marc. He's been in many pressure situations. He kind of got the T-shirt.
He has, but they don't all affect you the same. Pressure is a strange thing, and it doesn't always do the same thing to you every single time. Sometimes when you feel like you shouldn't be nervous, you are, and sometimes when you're in the most pressurized situation in some of the biggest matches of your life, sometimes you feel strangely calm, so it is a weird thing, pressure.
Is that okay? Just check that for me, will you? He's laminating it, so.
I know I've kept going on about this, Nick, and I've said this about 5 or 6 times now. But it is amazing me that a ball never goes on the rail.
Yeah, consistently throughout, throughout the matches all day, really. Very open games.
Yeah, so he has a shot that he can play here. The red that's over the corner, he can pop this with a little bit of left-hand side and try and play the cannon onto the red that doesn't go. It's sort of a free shot at it. He can't possibly not land on a ball, and that's what he's played my shot, but he's hit it so bad that he screwed up the rail. He was playing to just let the cue ball hit where the line meets the cushion and just let it drift up and aim to hit either the red or the yellow. And well, answers on a postcard what's happened there, but it's definitely made the finish a little bit tricky now. That tricky that he decided to defend, and I think that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's a total snooker. The 2 yellows that are around the black are a big target off one cushion, and if he plays it at the right pace, he could push the yellow in front of the black and make the black even more tied than it already is. That's the shot to play, and I think that's the shot he will play. It's all about the pace, because he is going to leave him on the red into the corner with an angle to knock his bad ball out. So this is all about just tying the black.
So some other games being lined up. You can see now there's another big match. It doesn't get any easier for Jack Whelan. He played Marc Ball in his first match. He's won that one, and now he's got Carl Boys. Gareth Hibbert will be playing Rich Toomey. That's very much 2 worlds collide. The epitome of the strap line. It's Gareth Hibbert, IPA World Champion from 2016. Rich Toomey, very much a World Rules player. And Carl Morris is just about to get underway against Callum Singleton. Lee Washbrook's back in action. He's playing Michael Smout. He's currently 3 frames to 2 up.
I wonder if Jed's offering a price on Carl Morris having some controversy in some match this weekend. Because if he is,
it'd be pretty short, wouldn't it?
It's going to be pretty short, but if it is, I'm willing to have a little go at that. It's no coincidence that it's always Carl. Should wear one of those T-shirts like Balotelli, why always me? So back to this game, and Mike's made a bit of a mess of this finish again here because he played to leave himself straight on this red so he can just stun it in and stun the black in the corner. He's now having to look if he can place the cue ball somewhere onto that side rail where he can pop the black into the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if the cue ball is 2 inches down from where the line meets the rail, then I think he can pot it. I think if he's further down, I think he needs to turn it over. Oh wow. If he's cannon that and landed on that in the corner, that's unbelievable.
No, I don't think he has. So the snooker score, I can tell you that John Higgins is leading Kyron Wilson 13-11, and Mark Williams is trailing Barry Hawkins 9-7, so 2 frames in each. So still anybody's.
So the only shot he's got here, which is what he's looking at, is to play the black off the yellow. Now, this is thin. He needs to just graze the yellow. See, he needed to be thin. Just caught it a bit too thick. And that is a massive let-off. I mean, if he clears there, which obviously at the start of that, he'll be sick that he didn't. If he clears there, it's 6-all. And
6-all with the break.
well, 6-all with break and 6-all with the momentum. Not only did he miss it, he left him the perfect angle to take his ball off the rail first shot. Mike's just explaining to one of his mates there what
Jeremy Hooper just over there. Just sat next to him.
Oh, Marc had a big bounce there, actually. That's bounced off like twice the distance I expected it to. So 7-5 is a big turning point, because I would have been sitting in his chair there thinking somehow it was going to be 6-all at the interval, and it's 7-5. But well, the scoreline could have been any amount either way. So I think both of them will be going to the toilet to give the head a bit of a shake, and I'll be back with you in a few minutes. love that second camera angle there of the table.
Yeah, we have just the 9 camera angles on this table.
One of the things that does happen when you have a brand new table that's under the TV lights with brand new cloth on the cushions, is that the pockets do play generous, and as you saw there, he caught the pocket like an inch before and it still went in. But you can't really do anything about that. They have a standard cut on the pockets, and when you play with a brand new cloth that plays so slippy like this, they slide in off the knuckles.
So you feel the momentum was swinging towards Mike. It's almost like it's just slowly swinging back the other way.
Yeah, he's way too loose with his cue ball. And I did say even when he was getting back into the match that he needs to tighten up with the cue ball, and he's finishing, well, he's in no man's land here. I think this, well, I presume it cuts into the middle because that's what he was playing, but the way he's cueing this looks to me like he's trying to play it into the corner. And it did go in the corner because he missed it to the right side.
Yeah. So Jack Whelan 2-0 up against Carl Boyes. Carl played brilliantly in his first game, apparently. So
yeah, and I am quite good friends with Jack. I do speak to him quite a bit, and he has told me that this week he has put a lot of hours in. He does work. He has got a good job. He works full time, so obviously juggling the practice isn't easy. But I know this week he has been putting the hours in, and obviously that's shown because he beat Marc Boyle first match.
yeah. Strong player, Jack, isn't he? Incredible talent.
He is a great talent. He's got a big break, and obviously won the IPA world title. And since then, by his standards and for somebody that is as talented as he is, he has gone missing a little bit. But a lot of that is down to, it just went in. Marc just had a glance over there at me as if to say, I thought I'd missed that.
And you're right, that is a great asset of Jack's, is his break. I didn't mention him when we were talking about the big breakers earlier, but I do remember doing a commentary stint with Jack some time ago, and he was talking about the break, and he said that he's quite surprised when he doesn't make a ball off the break. It's huge. Carl Morris 2-0 up against Callum Singleton. Callum Singleton in his first round match beat a good strong player in Jez Graham, so I know how to grind out a game.
Yeah, and just one thing I noticed, I know obviously Mike is a really nice guy, and I spoke to him quite a bit, but you know, I just saw there that obviously he'd made a mistake. He should have won the last frame, so effectively now he should be ahead, not behind. And when Marc potted that black there, he sort of tapped his leg as if to say good shot, and for me that's all a bit too nicey nice. If I'd just made 2 mistakes like that and I was 8-5 behind, I'd be wanting to throw me cue at somebody.
Yeah.
So
Need that killer instinct.
You need to have that fire, you need to have that sort of that desire in you, and sitting there, you know, tapping your leg when you've just made a mistake when the guy clears up, you know, it's not really for me. I think he needs to have a little bit more of that sort of, look, I'm here to win type attitude.
Yeah. Toby Bolt currently 8-5 up against Jordan Church. Jordan Church, no, he would have been some people's pick for this one. Really is a great player. It's not out of it yet, but 8-5 down. Toby very much in a rich vein of form at the moment. Beat Ben Davis the other day in a televised event. So his confidence will be high. Chris Melling's stretched his lead now. He's 7 frames to 4 up against Alf and Dad. So it looks like he's refinding some of that form that he had in his first match. That really was a good match as well. He played very well against Seb Webb. Seb came out of the blocks, firing on all cylinders. And Chris just took it in his stride, and he played a superb match.
Yeah, there's not too many that are more talented than Chris, and when he gets it going, he's brilliant, and he's brilliant to watch. It might all look a little bit clustered here, but they're actually easy again, because when he takes this one away, the other red then goes, and he can just push the yellow to the back rail like that. The 2 balls at the top plant, so he'll leave the cue ball high, so the cue ball somewhere near where the bolt line is, on that sort of line, and he can play the plant. So again, this is a finish that, barring something crazy happening like a kick, it's going to be 9-5. May choose to go up for the plant off the one in the middle now and leave the one next to the black. I think that would be my choice.
Yeah. Leave it to the last ball?
Leave it to the last ball, yeah. Because if he screws up off the one next to the black now, there you go. He was going to play it. Maybe he heard me. I should talk a little bit quieter. We'll charge him. So I said he might leave it high. He's actually played an even better shot and left it low. So leaving it low means he can just bump into the yellow. Not too far. He doesn't want to bump it too far. He'll only play this slowly. Look, the reason he didn't want to bump it too far is because the cue ball has to take that path back down to the red. The reason this was the right way is because it doesn't matter which side of the red he finishes, because the black goes into both corners.
Yeah.
He's actually finished straight, so he'll screw straight back.
That's a nice clearance from Marc.
It is, and it is a nice clearance, and he made it look easy.
Yeah.
Would it have been as easy had he have been, what, 8,
Well, yeah.
6 down like he should have been?
Under pressure.
But looking a lot more comfortable now, and
Yeah, he's got a smile on his face, and he will be feeling much more confident.
I think he'll be feeling confident, but I think he'll also be feeling relieved,
Yeah.
because I think he'll know that the scoreline could have been very different.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a passage in the middle there where Mike should have definitely pushed on. He had the momentum in his favour. There was a couple of mistakes from Marc. Mike did up his game slightly, but it's just swung back the other way now. So Marc just 2 frames away. 9 frames to 5. Liam Dunster has just won his game against Bash.
I know Dunster only plays the black ball rules. I don't know how much of the world rules he's played living up in Scotland, but I wouldn't imagine very much. But I also would imagine that he would be very good at these rules, having learned them, because obviously the style he is quite slow and methodical. And
Yeah.
calculated, loves a bit of a fudge, so he would be somebody which I think would do a lot of damage at these rules. Great break.
Now there's a player who, because he's kind of perfected this tap break, hasn't he? That when he tries to slow the game down, I wonder how he's dealing with this rack, because they're going to open up a bit more, aren't they?
Yeah, it's not easy to tap break with this rack, but the way this tournament's going, you almost, well, you definitely fancy making a ball more times than you don't from the break, so I think you've got to, especially when you know that there is a certain strike on the cue ball at a certain pace, that you can get those balls tracking towards the middle. It is a little bit more of a skill shot now rather than just a luck shot. Mike did absolutely flush that break, and not only did he time it really well, he hit the front ball clean, so the cue ball stunned up and down the line of the blue spot. It did get kicked over to that corner, left him no shot, but he's actually played a really, really good first shot there. He'd have been disappointed to have the cue ball in the corner there, because it did get flicked over to there, and he had to play a good plan.
Jack Williams taking another frame against Carboys. He's now 3-0 up. Phil Harrison's won the first 2 frames against Neil Wren. Ben Davis back in action now. Just about to get started against Andy Barber.
This was the right shot. That's the right shot. I presume he's played it as a two-way shot because it passes the red into the corner. But it was the right shot to take that into either the middle or the corner, because it was a little bit awkward. Definitely a little bit more awkward than it looked, that finish. So it does go in the corner. So he's played it as a two-way shot now, and if he underhits it, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like putting my hand in place before you address the cue. I don't think you can find the potting line doing it that way. I know he's foul awkward, but he needs to find the way of walking into the shot the same, otherwise he won't be on the right line. His cue's a little bit shaky there because his bridge hand's a little bit awkward on the rail.
Yeah.
Well, he's potted it, but he screwed back instead of stunned it.
Yeah.
He needed to hit the cue ball in the middle, and he's hit it an inch lower than he needed to.
And now this is unnecessarily difficult. It's
Well, it's like
much more difficult.
It's like a 90-degree
yeah.
cut into the middle.
Yeah.
Don't know if he can control the cue ball. Don't know if he can grip the white to control it. It's hard to see from here exactly how. Yeah, he did well with this. And again, he's finished with another 90-degree.
Yeah, almost deserved.
In between.
Yeah. You made a nice pot. Tried to control the white ball. Maybe just deserved a little bit more luck than he had there.
I think he won't believe that he was able to stop the cue ball short there. How thin that was. Oh, he's now cutting it into the middle.
No.
So that's all she wrote.
Yeah, that's another one that's.
There's no way back from 10-5.
No. That's another one that's been handed
Just
to Marc.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
Heart in the mouth just for a second, but no, like you mentioned earlier, no shake of the head. Don't worry about it.
No.
I'm on it. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Because I know it's only the little things, but even by playing a bad positional shot like he played and almost snookering himself, if he stands there and has a whinge and has a moan about it, he's almost admitting to himself that he's played a bad shot and he could have gone wrong, where he just walks on the table, gets on with it and says, look, I'm on it. I'm not even going to acknowledge that I played a half bad shot. I'm just going to get down and roll the next red in.
Toby Bolt now 10 frames to 5 against Jordan Church. That, I can guarantee, will break some people's accumulators. They would have fancied Jordan in that one. And I'm pretty sure, well, pretty sure that Jordan would have been favourite. I would say probably...
He'd have been a heavy favourite.
Yeah. Probably 1 to 2, 1 to 3 maybe. Ronan McCarthy's got a tough game there. He's got a gritty opponent in Brian Harcrow. Brian doesn't give anything away. We saw him in a money match recently, actually, playing Rob Chilton. I don't think Brian just can't turn games down, because I've seen him play Chris Melling, I've seen him play Marc Farnsworth, Rob Chilton. He doesn't seem to shy away from them.
Well, one thing I will say to that, Nick, being brutally honest, is it's easy not to turn games down if you're not having a bet on yourself and you're only taking a percentage of somebody else's money.
Yep.
So, you know, these players that go around say, you know, playing anybody and saying yes, you know, that like that, who he is obviously playing players that, in all fairness, he is out of his depth a little bit.
Yep.
If he's willing, if he's got people that are willing to back him, and he's on 20%, well, that's 20% of something he would never have a chance of winning.
I agree.
So of course he would say yes, I'll play anybody, anything.
Yep.
You'd turn around and say I'd play Ronnie O'Sullivan snooker if somebody's backing me and I'm on 20% if I win.
Gaz, I was in Yeovil the day that you played Early Bell, watching that game, and that's case in point for me. Early was
exactly, you know,
playing out of his depth that day, in my opinion, but it didn't matter. He was living off the fact that he was playing Gaz Potts. You know,
and I think what more importantly than living off that is the fact that he's being backed, not having a bet on himself, and if he wins, he's on 20% of the stake.
And so many players are, aren't they?
Yeah,
nowadays?
so it's a complete free go. It's not like he's turned up to that match and said, "Oh, well, I'm having 10 grand on myself."
Yeah, there's only a few players. I mean, probably Marc Farnsworth, Ronan McCarthy. They have heavy amounts on themselves when they play. There's not that many. There's not that many.
Well, the reason why that Ronan has to be classed as the biggest money player and the best money player of all time, and I've publicly wrote this, is because every match that he's played, he always has half of the pot on himself. So that's a proper money match player.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he played. Well, I say always has half. Most of the time he has half. When he played Marc Farnsworth, they played 4 times. When they played for the biggest amount, which was a £84,000 pot, which to my knowledge is the biggest English 8 ball so far. Yeah. I think he had 25,000 on himself. Every other money match I've known him to play, you know, for the 10, 20,000, he always has half. And what he does is he has half on himself, and he gives the people he wants to give the rest to without taking a percentage.
Yeah.
To me, that's a proper money match player.
Yeah.
Not somebody that doesn't have a penny on themselves and just takes 20% if they win. Of course, they'll be happy to play anybody.
Of course, yeah. Play anyone in the world.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? You get a free shot. Yeah, it's there's different kinds of pressures, isn't there? I mean, there's some people just, you know, they're playing probably 90% of their backers. They don't even know. But when you've got someone like Ronan, the chances are the people that have backed him are his mates. So he's got his own money and his mates' money riding on it, and that really increases the pressure. Yeah. When you've got 10 grand and 8 of it belongs to people you don't even know, and your mates have got a couple of grand between them, well, you've just got a free shot.
Yeah. And Marc's the same. The money matches Marc plays. He has a big bet on himself.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be.
So he's had a few looks at this plant.
Yeah, he
has to take it.
He's just finished. Yeah, he has to take it, but he's just finished a little bit low. If the cue ball's 2 inches higher, it's unmissable. Good shot.
Yeah.
Good shot.
Yeah, that could be.
Really good shot. That may have looked like, oh, he cannoned into the black and now he's landed on the one over the hole, but I assure you, he played it exactly like that. He topped the black on and off the side rail, knowing that the cue ball would track up towards the red, and he played it so hard because obviously he didn't want the black to sit on the rail. Okay, but slightly short. Another 2 inches and he'd have already rolled all 3 of them in by now. I think he might be having to check it off the top rail.
Yeah, played that really well. Small ripple of applause. Recognising that...
and I'm sitting behind it, and he does have an angle just to stun up the white line there and end somewhere near the black spot.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't like that, so he
screwed around it.
Yeah. It takes the element of landing behind. So this is for an impressive, in the end, 11-5 win, but he will definitely be over the moon with that win because it did go a little bit strange in the middle of that match, and Mike will definitely be disappointed with that performance.
So Mike will be back tomorrow morning. He's on the loser's side, and Marc Farnsworth progresses through the winner's side. We'll be back with the action at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, I do believe. There'll be the loser's side will be in action at 9 a.m. I think the winner's side get much of the morning off, and they don't come back until the afternoon. It's been a pleasure, Gaz. Thank you very much, as always. Hopefully we'll see you again over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll do a bit more. Thank
Great
you
to
very
see
much.
you. So from Beard Productions, it's a very good night. I don't know, actually, if there's anyone rushing towards the interview box. Marc Farnsworth is just behind us, so if Lee Kendall's on hand, we may have some interviews coming up very shortly. I can't tell you one way or the other, so just stay tuned for a few seconds just to see if that's going to happen. I'm not sure, again, what the stream matches are going to be tomorrow morning, but we will have some more blockbuster games for you. Another fabulous day of pool coming up tomorrow. So this was May the 4th and day 1 of event 1, drawing to a conclusion. There is an interview. Lee's just getting things together now, so we will hear from Marc Farnsworth momentarily. But for me, it's a very good night, and we'll see you all again with the action at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Handing over to Lee Kendall in just a moment. So both players going into the interview room. We're going to have Marc, Gaz and Lee, I believe.
Okay, so we're here with arguably the best player on the planet, certainly the best, probably with his hand on the table, as I said in the commentary there, and it's his second win. Mike there was a decent player, so it was a little bit of a slippery game. That obviously I commentated on it, and you played well, but missed a couple of crucial balls in the middle of the match, which allowed him to get back to 6-5. He had a big chance at 6-5, and then from then the rest was history. How did you see it?
Yeah, I felt really good. The first match as well earlier on today, I felt comfortable all the way through the match. Again, made a couple of sloppy mistakes here and there, which got punished. I managed to win the early match. It was 11-6. The same there. I got off to a flying start. I think I went, was it 3 or 4-0 up? Pretty comfortable, and then I made a couple of really daft mistakes. One of them was careful for me break. I think it was at 6-3. Absolute drop-in, just really, really careless. Got punished for it, and then he came back at us to go level and put us under a bit of pressure, and I obviously managed to scrape a couple of frames and get the lead back. So at the end, it ended up comfortable towards the end, but it was a bit touch and go in the middle bit of the match.
Yeah, and that was obviously your first match on the TV table, and everyone that's come off that TV table has said that it is playing really quick, really responsive. How did you?
Yeah, I think it's the whole setup's been absolutely fantastic. The cloth, obviously I've been on green the last 2 or 3 weeks practicing for it. The table I was on earlier on was quick. It was responsive, but it was beautiful to play on. The arena table does play, maybe it's the lighting or whatever, but does play that slight bit quicker, more responsive, more bounce off the cushion, so it does catch you out a little bit. Plus, I've played on the shot clock a hell of a lot over the years, but the 45 second, I don't know whether it's just been getting used to the rule setting again. It's sort of, obviously I felt dead edgy because of the shot clock, which does affect the match, I think, to a certain extent, but I think it's a positive way. It's got to come in, because some of the matches you look around without the shot obviously can drag on a little bit, but it's been a fantastic experience up to now.
And it's nice to, obviously he's a good player, but it's nice to have that sort of player play against him in the arena, because if you're up the back playing it on a table out of the way, of course you're still favourite to win the match, but when you play out there in that arena against that type of player, it does sort of make the gap a little bit bigger and make you even bigger favourite, if you understand what I mean. So when you saw that you're on the arena, that's something you thrive on.
To be honest, obviously I've heard a lot about Mike, and it's the first time I've actually seen him play. I thought his break was fantastic. You can tell he's a really good cueist. I think that the table found him out a few times to my benefit, but you can tell he's a very, very good player. Obviously I went in the match knowing I had a tough game. I was impressed by, I just got the lucky break here and there. I led back in the match, and then I got a couple of lucky breaks, obviously, to extend the lead again. So I'm just over the moon to get over the line. Like I said, I felt really confident going into the match. Got a bit hairy in the middle bit of it, but obviously I felt really confident towards the end.
And obviously, in any double elimination tournament, the start of it's massive, because if you lose one of the first 2 matches, it obviously sets you so far back.
Yeah.
The loser side goes raised to 8, so it's nice to stay on the winner side, and the further you go through, the less matches you have in the loser side. So obviously winning your first 2 matches is a great start, but also, puts you right there in contention.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think double elimination's a great idea. But like you say, if you lose your first match early on, you're up against it. You're basically going to have to play till the cows come home, really. But I think the benefit of this tournament, obviously I know there's a hell of a lot of work on it from obviously Lee and the other Lee and obviously the whole team, but it's the extended races which makes a massive difference as well, because you play on various other tournaments, and it's first to 7s and first to 8s, which, don't get us wrong, obviously there's still hard matches to win, but them extra 3 frames in the winner's side just makes a massive difference. Not that you've got a margin for error sort of thing, but I just think it's a right sort of race. 10s, 11s, I think that's where, especially the standard pool these days, obviously there's that many good players. I think 7 and 8's too short, so I think that's a massive bonus for the tournament, having the longer race.
And just a quick last question, which personally I want to ask you, having watched that, is obviously it's well documented how good you are, and perhaps for how good you are, how bad your break's been over the time. Obviously we speak about that.
It's the first time anybody's ever mentioned it.
Yeah. But the question I wanted to ask you is, obviously the Magic Rack surely has to be a huge advantage for you.
Yeah. To be honest, though, I don't really. I try. Obviously, I know I've been breaking players down over the years, but I never ever use as an excuse. I think it's a people come off the table. It's the first excuse to use. My break was bad, his break was, and I think it's an absolute joke the way people go on about it. I think it's probably the most important part of the game. I think you look around the room. There's some people who put a lot of time and effort in practice it, and obviously get that much better with the break. It gives them such a good advantage. So obviously, my break is terrible compared to obviously the rest of my game, but I do work on it. Obviously it's something that I do put time in, even though you wouldn't think looking at it, but the Magic Rack, I just think it takes that bit of I don't know whether it's laziness with myself when I'm racking the balls up the normal triangle, whether I leave them loose or whatever else. But I think every single split there with the Magic Rack, they opened up quite nice, and it was nice to get the hand on the table. After the break.
And you know, I saw the work that went behind making the, you know, this isn't called the Magic Rack, it's the Supreme Shot Rack, but it's basically the same thing. But I saw the work that went in behind what went into that, and they messed about with the thickness of it, and you know, because the balls are lighter than the American balls, so it's got to be right, you know, because but when you've got a referee, they can mark it, and the best thing is when you've got a referee, it's not about the referee making it fair or unfair for either player. All 15 balls are guaranteed to be touching, which can only be fair.
I think the only slight, obviously, I don't even take it as a negative. I think the only slight thing, obviously, is getting it removed. Obviously, I don't know whether in time something else can be done about that. Whether I don't know, but obviously, I think it's a massive breakthrough, because I think it's such a positive on the game, like you say, because there's so many, like the last year or so, there's obviously cut breakings came in a lot more on various other tables, but then you get the issues of people high racking, tilt racking, that alienates all of that, which is a massive plus. The only reason, obviously, it's getting it off the table, but and I think it's massive for the game.
If they calculated a percentage at the end of the tournament of 20%, 30% of the time when you have to mark it and take it off, I think that's a small price to pay for having
I totally agree.
The perfect rack every single time.
Yeah, it is, because like you said, it's a fair for everybody, and it alienates that little bit of way you possibly could have had people tell them it's I think it's fantastic, and I think it definitely here to stay. I think everything about it, it's spot on.
So anyway, good luck for tomorrow. Obviously into the third round. Do you know who you play the winner of next?
I've never looked, to be honest. Obviously, I knew it was double elimination, so I knew how I played first match, so I never really took much notice of the draw. I looked at the section when obviously the Calcutta and that was done, which I think another thing. I think it's been fantastic, breath of fresh air. I think it just gives it a whole new level altogether. I didn't really understand it before it came about, but I think it's
added a new interest and dimension.
Just brings more interest to people. Obviously, a lot more people involved. So I think it's a great concept.
Okay, mate. Well, keep up the good work, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.